In our last video, we discussed the Shimla agreement between India and Pakistan. This was the period when Indira Gandhi was at the peak of her power and glory. She had reached the zenith, but she was soon to become the most unpopular leader, reaching the nadir of her career. In this video, we are going to discuss how and why this transition happened. Let us first see what was happening when she was at zenith point of her career. The Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971 had made her popular all over India. Even her opponents praised the brilliant leadership of her. The war had spread the patriotic wave throughout the nation. To make political capital of what soldiers had accomplished, fresh elections were called in 13 states in March 1972. Some of them had opposition governments and some had uneasy Congress-led coalition. In all 13 states, Congress won comfortably. The All India Congress Committee had once elected representatives from the states. These in turn sent up by Congress bodies at the taluka and district levels. More significantly, the chief ministers of Congress-ruled states were chosen by the local legislature alone. However, after the Congress split in 1969, Mrs. Gandhi was able to place her own candidates in key positions. This centralizing process was confirmed after her spectacular victory in the elections of 1971. The government got past two important constitutional amendments. The Supreme Court had, in two judgments in 1951 and 1965, upheld Parliament's right to amend the fundamental right to property so as to make any legislation regarding it non-justiciable. But in 1967, the Supreme Court had, in the Golaknath case, reversed these decisions and later set aside bank nationalization and the abolition of privy purses. The 24th Amendment to the Constitution, passed in 1971, restored Parliament's authority to amend the fundamental rights. The 25th Amendment, passed in the same year, gave Parliament the power to decide the amount to be paid as compensation and the mode of payment in case of any private property taken over for future purposes. Thus, the Supreme Court would no longer have the power to declare such compensation to be inadequate. India achieved a major success in terms of a breakthrough in science and technology when the Atomic Energy Commission detonated an underground nuclear device at Pokhran in the deserts of Rajasthan on 18th May 1974. The Indian government, however, declared that it was not going to make nuclear weapons even though it had acquired the capacity to do so. It claimed that the Pokhran explosion was an effort to harness atomic energy for peaceful purposes and to make India self-reliant in nuclear technology. In 1974, Congress President D.K. Baru said, "Indira is India and India is Indira." This gives an idea how powerful she was during this period. But since 1973, the tide had been turning against Indira Gandhi. Let us now see what all was not good during this time. The Green Revolution had touched less than one-tenth of the districts in rural India. Most areas of farming were still rain-fed. Thus, despite the rise in industrial growth and agricultural production, there was still widespread destitution in the countryside. Another very great failure was education. There had been an enormous growth in number of colleges offering instructions in the sciences and humanities, but basic education had done poorly. Monsoon rains failed for 2 years in succession during 1972 and 1973, leading to a terrible drought in most parts of the country and massive shortage of food grains and fueling their prices. The drought also led to a drop in power generation and combined with the fall in agricultural production and therefore in the demand for manufactured goods led to industrial recession and rise in unemployment. The year 1973 also witnessed the notorious oil shock when world prices of crude oil increased fourfold, leading to massive increase in the prices of petroleum and fertilizers. This drained foreign reserves, further increased the budgetary deficit, and deepened economic recession. With all this, prices rose continuously by 22% in 1972-73 alone. The price rise, which affected both the poor and middle classes, was accompanied by scarcity of essential articles of consumption. There were food riots in several parts of the country. After the elections of 1971, the Prime Minister's second son, Sanjay, became more visible in public life. Expelled from his first Indian school and graduating with difficulty from the second, he had served a brief apprenticeship with Rolls-Royce in the UK before returning home to start a car factory of his own. As it happened, Sanjay's car project was cleared with undue haste. 18 applications were received for a license to make small cars. Only that of Prime Minister's son was approved, despite his having no past experience in this regard. The Congress Chief Minister of Haryana, Bansi Lal, gave Sanjay's Maruti Car Company 300 acres of land at giveaway price. In March 1973, the government appointed a new Chief Justice of Supreme Court. In the past, once a Chief Justice retired, the most senior member of the bench took his place. This time, Justice A. N. Roy was elevated while three colleagues were ahead of him. The choice was politically motivated, a manifestation of government's increasing desire to control the judiciary. In the first weeks of 1973, the Supreme Court heard a petition challenging a new law which gave Parliament greater powers to amend the Constitution. A full bench heard the case, with 6 judges voting to restrict Parliament's power, 7 upholding them. Among those voting on government's side was Justice A. N. Ray. Among those on the other side, Justice Hegde. Ray's elevation was linked to this particular case, as well as to a more general view held by P. N. Huskar most forcefully, that judges as well as civil servants should be committed to the policies and philosophy of the government in power. What turned the various economic and political crises into one of the political system were two popular movements in Gujarat and Bihar against the faction-ridden Congress governments, and the leadership provided to Bihar by Jayaprakash Narayan. A major upheaval occurred in Gujarat in January 1974 when popular anger over the rise in prices of food grains, cooking oil, and other essential commodities exploded in the cities and towns of the state in the form of a student movement which was soon joined by the opposition parties. By February, the central government was forced to ask the state government to resign, suspend the assembly, and impose president's rule in the state. The last act of the Gujarat drama was played in March 1975 when faced with continuing agitation and a fast unto death by Morarji Desai. Indira Gandhi dissolved the assembly and announced fresh election in June. On the heels of the Gujarat agitation and inspired by its success, a similar agitation was started by students in Bihar in March 1974. The students, starting with Gherav of the assembly on 18th March, repeatedly clashed with the overactive police, leading to the death of 27 people in 1 week. Moreover, as in Gujarat, opposition parties quickly joined forces with the student agitators. The Bihar movement was however more characterized by two new features. Jayaprakash Narayan, popularly known as JP, came out from political retirement, took over its leadership, and gave a call for total revolution. JP also decided to go beyond Bihar and organize a countrywide movement against widespread corruption and for the removal of Congress and Indira Gandhi, who was now seen as a threat to democracy and portrayed as the fountainhead of corruption. To add to it, a sudden twist to Indian politics was given by a judgment on 12th June 1975 by Justice Sinha of Allahabad High Court on an election petition by Raj Narayan convicting Mrs. Gandhi for having indulged in corrupt campaign practices and declaring her election invalid. The conviction also meant that she could not seek election to Parliament or hold office for 6 years, and therefore continue as Prime Minister. All this decreased Indira Gandhi's popularity to its nadir, and then began the dark period in the Indian democracy, the emergency. In our next video, we will discuss in detail what all was happening on the eve of emergency. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and comment because discussion is solution. For more discussions, please subscribe our channel.